Okay, we can start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Tirye Nashtuprayeshu Pudreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12, Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. Text number 10 onwards. Athayajat yagyesham kritubhir bhuri dakshinahe dravya kriya devatanam karma karma fal pradam. As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices. In order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benedictions. So in the previous verse, we saw how Kubera gave the benediction to Dhruva Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj only asked a benediction that he never forgets the lotus feet of Krishna. And he always had the faith. And Kubera was very pleased with that. And then further, Dhruva Maharaj, then he remained at home, ruled over the kingdom, and he performed many sacrifices. This was also the benediction by the Lord, Supreme Lord, when he revealed himself to Dhruva Maharaj in the forest. He said, you will perform lots of sacrifices and give lots of charities. In Bhagavad Gita it is said, Yagyarthat karmano anyatra loko em karma bandhana. One should act a work only in order to please the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, one becomes entangled in the resultant reactions. According to the four divisions of Varna and Ashram, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are especially advised to perform great ceremonial sacrifices and to distribute the accumulated money very liberally. Dhruva Maharaj, as a king and ideal Kshatriya, performed many such sacrifices, giving very liberally in charity. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are supposed to earn their money and accumulate great riches. Sometimes they do it by acting sinfully. Kshatriyas are meant to rule over a country. Dhruva Maharaj, for example, in the course of ruling had to fight and kill many yakshas. Such action is necessary for Kshatriya. A Kshatriya should not be a coward and he should not be non-violent. To rule over the country, he has to act violently. So Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are therefore especially advised to give in charity at least 50% of their accumulated wealth. Wow. They're especially advised to give in charity at least 50% of their accumulated wealth. In Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that even though one enters a renounced order of life, he still cannot give up the performance of yajna, dhan, and tapasya. They are never to be given up. Tapasya is meant for the renounced order of life. Those who are retired from worldly activities should perform tapasya, penances, and austerities. Those who are in the material world, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, must give charity. Brahmacharis in the beginning of their life should perform different kinds of yajnas. So for every person in different varna and ashram, there are some duties mentioned. So for Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, the ruler class and the business class, or so Vaishyas also mean the farmers, the cow protectors, they should give charity. Although Prabhupada says it is mentioned that one should give at least 50% of the accumulated wealth, which currently doesn't look like it's practical, it's possible. But that is given, that injunction is there uh, for one who's not doing any devotional service. One who is doing devotional service, then one has to see what he can, whatever he can give as charity, because all his money is basically used in the service of Krishna anyway. To in the home is a temple of the Lord. The bhoga is being offered. The home is being prepared to for the Lord to reside in, like a temple is there at home, and so many other activities are being carried out for the pleasure of the Lord. So whatever practical one can do, one should do. Dhruv Maharaj, as an ideal king, practically emptied his treasury by giving charity. A king is not meant simply to realize taxes from the citizens and accumulate wealth to spend in sense gratification. World monarchy has failed ever since kings began to satisfy the personal senses with the taxes accumulated from the citizens. Of course, whether the system is monarchy or democracy, the same corruption is still going on. At the present moment, there are different parties in the democratic government, but everyone is busy trying to keep his post or trying to keep his political party in power. The politicians have very little time to think of the welfare of the citizens, whom they oppress with heavy taxes in the form of income tax, sales tax, and many other taxes. People sometimes have 80 to 90% of their income taken away, and these taxes are lavishly spent for the high salaries drawn by the officers and the rulers. Formerly, the taxes accumulated from the citizens were spent for performing great sacrifices, as enjoined in the Vedic literature. At the present moment, however, almost all forms of sacrifices are not at all possible. Therefore, it is recommended in the Shastras that people should perform Sankirtan Yajna. Any householder, regardless of his position, can perform this Sankirtan Yajna without expenditure. So that's another good part of Sankirtan Yajna. It doesn't take money. We can do without doing any expenses. All the family members can sit down together and simply clap their hands and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Somehow or other, everyone can manage to perform such a yajna and distribute prasad to the people in general. That is quite sufficient for this age of Kali. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. Chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra at every moment as much as possible, both inside and outside of the temples. And as far as possible, distribute prasad. This process can be accelerated with the cooperation of state administrators and those who are producing the country's wealth. Simply by liberal distribution of prasad and sankirtan, the whole world can become peaceful and prosperous. See? Simply, this is a simple process that Prabhupada has given. Actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave. Sankirtan and distribution of prasad. The whole world can become peaceful and prosperous. That's Prabhupada's writing in Bhagavatam. So definitely it's possible. We can try doing anything and everything possible to bring out peace in the world, but it's not going to happen. Only by Sankirtan and distribution of prasad. Chanting of the holy names, either individually or congregationally, and distribute prasad. So simple. In fact, once in Chicago, I think Prabhupada had the meeting with the police commissioner of Chicago. And Prabhupada asked him, well, how is the situation in the city? And he was like, there's so many problems. Drug addicts are there, and the robberies happen, and the killings happen. It was so difficult. for them to take care of the city, one city. And Prabhupada said, you just give us that city, give us the permission to distribute prasad and hold Sankirtan in the city. And I guarantee you everything, all this nonsense will go down. But obviously, government cannot support in this, so it never happened. Even in India, it doesn't. I mean, we don't get permission to hold Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan. It just like when I was in Gurgaon and Delhi, it was like you just inform us, police used to say, and just take on your Sankirtan. Just don't ask for permission. We cannot give you permission. But this Sankirtan has to go on regularly. And definitely there will be change in the atmosphere. I remember in the early beginning days, I joined in Dallas, and every Saturday night, we used to do Harinam in the area where there were lots of bars and pubs and the restaurants, outside restaurants. And the devotees, American devotees, would lead because they would know where to go, how to deal with police, and how to deal with the hooligans. And people would enjoy, but obviously they were drinking and enjoying or whatever they're doing. But definitely, once you go there, in that area, the atmosphere used to be so heavy with all the sinful activities going on over there. Atmosphere used to be so heavy. And when we would carry out Sankirtan, Harinam for maybe an hour or so, we could feel there is some change in the atmosphere. Whether the people believed or not, people felt it or not, because there was so much in ignorance and this passion and this the different modes of whatever they were doing. But I'm pretty sure some difference they must have felt. So this Harinam is very, very powerful, very powerful. Of course, this time, Corona crisis time, we cannot go out and do Harinam. So we can, like Prabhupada said, simply sit down together and clap their hands and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That is good enough. So we should do even at home. Japa is one thing, but maybe do some Sankirtan at home. And the results will be amazing. Generally, in all the material sacrifices recommended in the Vedic literature, there are offerings to the demigods. This demigod worship is especially meant for less intelligent men. Actually, the result of such sacrifice goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam. He is actually the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. His name, therefore, is Yajna Purush. Although Dhruv Maharaj was a great devotee and had nothing to do with these sacrifices, to set an example to his people, he performed many sacrifices and gave all his wealth in charity. So he performed many sacrifices. Of course, that time the different sacrifices, it's a Satyuga time. So many sacrifices, big sacrifices. Major path for self-realization was sacrifices for Treta Yuga, but in Satyuga also they used to do sacrifices. And as a king also he had to perform sacrifices. And he practically gave all his wealth in charity. For as long as he lived as a householder, he never spent a farthing for his sense gratification. In this verse, the word karma phala pradam is very significant. The Lord awards everyone different kinds of karma as the individual living entities desire. He is the super soul present within the heart of everyone, and he is so kind and liberal that he gives everyone full facilities to perform whatever acts one wants. Then the result of the action is also enjoyed by the living entity. If anyone wants to enjoy or lord it over material nature, the Lord gives him full facilities, but he becomes entangled in the resultant reactions. Similarly, if anyone wants to engage himself fully in devotional service, the Lord gives him full facilities and the devotee enjoys the results. Lord is therefore known as Karma Phala Prada. So he gives the karma phala. But it depends whatever karma we do. Whether we do sacrifices for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, then he is very pleased and he gives the resultant reactions. And if we perform activities, and they also sacrifice in the sense any work that we do requires some sacrifice of our time, of our health, of our energy, of our wealth. But just like somebody is doing a job or a business, he is sacrificing a lot, but to make money and to end up using that money for his own sake. Then he gets entangled in the karma. So this sacrifice of Harinam for Kali Yuga is the most important and most potent that everybody should do. Sarvatmani achyutaya sarve tivro gham bhakti mudvahan dadarshātmani bhuteshu tamevavasthitam vibhum. Dhruva Maharaj rendered devotional service unto the Supreme, the reservoir of everything, with unrelenting force. Unrelenting force means non-stop he did this devotional service. While carrying out his devotional service to the Lord, he could see that everything is situated in him only, and that he is situated in all living entities. The Lord is called Achyuta because he never fails in his prime duty to give protection to his devotees. Not only did Dhruva Maharaj perform many sacrifices, but he carried on his transcendental occupation of engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. The ordinary karmis who want to enjoy the results of fruitive activities are concerned only with sacrifices and ritualistic ceremonies as enjoined in the Vedic Shastras. Although Dhruva Maharaj performed many sacrifices in order to be an exemplary king, he was constantly engaged in devotional service. The Lord always protects his surrendered devotee. A devotee can see that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Ordinary persons cannot understand how the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, but a devotee can actually see him. Not only can the devotee see him outwardly, but he can see with spiritual vision that everything is resting in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as described in Bhagavad Gita. That is the vision of a Mahabhagat. He sees everything others see, but instead of seeing merely the trees, the mountains, the cities, or the sky, he sees only his worshipable Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything, because everything is resting in him only. That is the vision of a Mahabhagat. So Dhruva Maharaj was at that stage of Mahabhagat. He saw Krishna everywhere. But just because I see Krishna everywhere doesn't mean he's not in his murti or in his Archa Vigraha or in the temple. He saw Krishna everywhere in the sense everything is coming from him and resting on him. But he's there in his Archa Vigraha. That's non-different from Krishna. The rest all are his energies, which are same and different at the same time. So, in summary, a Mahabhagavata, a highly elevated pure devotee, sees the Lord everywhere, as well as within the heart of it, is within the heart of everyone. This is possible for devotees who have developed elevated devotional service to the Lord. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. Only those who have smeared their eyes with the ointment of love of Godhead can see everywhere the Supreme Lord face to face. It's not possible by imagination or so-called meditation. So it's only possible when one has so much of love for Krishna. He has developed so much of love for Krishna that he sees Krishna everywhere and in everything. And Krishna is there in everything. It's just like an example that is given, just like a mother, because this love between mother and her child, it's explained, it comes very close to the spiritual love. Of course, it is material, but comes very close. So if the mother is at home and the child is in the school, and mother is taking care of household chores, and then she comes across the shoe of the child, the clothes of the child, the toys, the books, or anything that the child uses, mother will immediately think of the child. She's seeing the shoe, but she's thinking of the child, how he wears the shoe, when did I buy this shoe for the child, or who gave the shoe as a gift, or whatever the case may be. But she will immediately think of the child and relate that item with the child because of her love for the child. That shoe is not the child. That cloth, that toy is not the child. But it's related to the child. And that because the mother has so much of love for the child. And the same shoe of somebody else's child, this lady won't even care for. But because she has love for her child, so much of love, that she immediately relates that shoe to the child. And then she would very carefully keep the shoe in its place because she knows the child will be very happy when he comes home and finds a shoe at the right place and in the right condition, and so he can put it on and maybe go play soccer or do some running around or whatever. That is real love for the mother for a child. So similarly, when we see anything, because from Bhagavad Gita and from Bhagavatam, so many instructions, we know everything belongs to Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. So when we see anything, there should be so much of love for Krishna that we relate everything with Krishna. We should see, okay, this computer, and it is connected to Krishna. It's used in Krishna service. It has come from the energy. All the items have been provided by Krishna for the manufacture of this computer. And so on and so forth. But that can only happen when we have love for Krishna. And that is why Brahma Samhita says, only those who have smeared their eyes with the ointment of love of Godhead can see everywhere the Supreme Lord face to face. He doesn't even have to imagine anything. He doesn't even have to force himself or pretend that he's seeing. He will actually see. And that was a position of Dhruv Maharaj. He was seeing the Supreme Lord everywhere, in everything. तमेवं शीलसम्पन्नं ब्रह्मण्यं दीनवत्सलं गौप्तारं धर्मसेतूनां मेनिरे पितरं प्रजः. Dhruv Maharaj was endowed with all godly qualities. He was very respectful to the devotees of the Supreme Lord and very kind to the poor and innocent. And he protected religious principles. With all these qualifications, he was considered to be the direct father of all the citizens. So that's how he was regarded by the citizens as a father, because the king is one of the fathers. But since he was very kind to the poor and innocent and protected the religious principles, very respectful to the devotees of the Supreme Lord, and he had all the godly qualities, that means he was a real representative of the Lord, not like a tyrant or some corrupt politician. They think they should be regarded as a father. That cannot happen. The qualities have to be there. The personal qualities of Dhruv Maharaj described herein are the exemplary qualities of a saintly king. Not only a king, but also the leaders of a modern, democratic, or impersonal government must be qualified with all these godly characteristics. Then the citizens of the state can be happy. It is clearly stated here that the citizens thought of Dhruv Maharaj as a father. As a child depending on the able father is completely satisfied. So the citizens of the state, being protected by the state or the king, should remain satisfied in every respect. At the present moment, however, there is no guarantee by the government of even the primary necessities of life in the state, namely the protection of the lives and property of the citizens. So these are the primary necessities of life: protection of lives and the property of the citizens. One word is very significant in this connection: Brahmanyam. Dhruv Maharaj was very devoted to the Brahmins, who engage in the study of the Vedas and thereby know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are always busy propagating Krishna consciousness. The state should be very respectful to the societies that distribute God consciousness all over the world. But unfortunately, at the present moment, there is no state or government support given into such movements. As for good qualities, it is very difficult to find anyone in state administration with any good qualities. The administrators simply sit in their administrative posts and say no to every request, as if they were paid to say no to the citizens. Another word, Dina Vatsalam, is very significant also. The state head should be very kind to the innocent. Unfortunately, in this age, the state agents and the presidents draw good salaries from the state, and they pose themselves as very pious, but they allow the running of slaughterhouses where innocent animals are killed. If we try to compare the godly qualities of Dhruv Maharaj to the qualities of modern statesmen, we can see that there is no actual comparison. Dhruv Maharaj was present in the Satya Yuga, as will be clear from the next verses. He was the ideal king in Satya Yuga. The government administration in the present age, Kali Yuga, is bereft of all godly qualities. Considering all these points, the people today have no alternative but to take to Krishna consciousness for protection of religion, life, and property. So present day government, we cannot expect anything from them, that they will protect the rights of the citizens. The right to live, right to have the property, or right to make money, whichever way, and the right to religion, right to choose their religion. At least in America, in Constitution, all these three rights are given. Categorically, they are given. Because America was founded by people who were basically kicked out of Europe or London, mostly Britain, and they were persecuted over there for their religious beliefs, and they were kicked out. They were put on the ships and sent to the newly found land of America by Columbus. And when they came here, and of course they also did lots of wrong things against native Indians, Native Americans who were here, and basically they killed them and took over their land. But afterwards, when there was independence movement here also, and they were all from Europe and they wanted independence from Britain and France. And once everything was settled, the Constitution was written in 1776, and it was ratified by the different states, governments. And in that Constitution, they really put in lots of time and effort to write that Constitution, and they give the right to the freedom of religion, freedom of making money, means property, and right to live. These rights are given because they had seen how the governments who can become rogue or who can take away the rights of citizens. Right to speech is there. Well, of course, within limitation. The limitations are always there. Should be there. But for an ideal government or an ideal king, could be like Dhruv Maharaj, or later on we'll study about Prithu Maharaj. It's very difficult in this day and age in Kali Yuga. So one has to become Krishna conscious only. That's a purpose. Considering all these points, the people today have no alternative but to take to Krishna consciousness. For protection of religion, see, protection of religion is very, very important. It's not like we can say, what's the point in following all this? What's the point in making temples? And what is this point? What is that point? They don't understand. Without religion, without some form of dharma or religion or some form of spiritual practices, a living being, even a human being, is as good as an animal. An animal does not perform any spiritual practices. So if a human being also doesn't, then he's as good as an animal. Dharma hina pashubhir narana. So without dharma, without the proper position, without proper understanding, because animals cannot understand all this. So these so-called liberals, they need to get their brains checked. And of course, we don't want any tyrants in the country, but at the same time, too much liberalization is also not good. One has to find a middle path of moderate nature. Shatrinshad Varsha Sahasram Shashasa Kshiti Mandalam Bhoga Punyakshayam Kurvan Bhogar Akshubhakshayam. Dhruv Maharaj ruled over this planet for 36,000 years. He diminished the reactions of pious activities by enjoyment, and by practicing austerities, he diminished inauspicious reactions. So this 36,000 years of his rule that was told by the Supreme Lord when he met him in the forest, that Dhruv Maharaj ruled over the planet for 36,000 years means that he was present in Satyuga, because in Satyuga people used to live for 100,000 years. In the next Yuga Treta, people used to live for 10,000 years, and in the next Yuga Dwapar for 1,000 years. In the present age, the Kali Yuga, the maximum duration of life is 100 years. With the change of the yugas, the duration of life and memory, the quality of kindness and all other good qualities diminish. There are two kinds of activities, namely pious and impious. By executing pious activities, one can gain facilities for higher material enjoyment. But due to impious activities, one has to undergo severe distress. A devotee, however, is not interested in enjoyment or affected by distress. When he is prosperous, he knows I am diminishing the results of my pious activities. And when he is in distress, he knows I am diminishing the reactions of my impious activities. A devotee is not concerned with enjoyment or distress. He simply desires to execute devotional service. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that devotional service should be apratihata, unchecked by the material conditions of happiness or distress. The devotee undergoes processes of austerity such as observing Ekadashi and similar other fasting days and refrain from illicit sex life, intoxication, gambling and meat eating. Thus he becomes purified from the reactions of his past impious life. And because he engages in devotional service, which is the most pious activities, he enjoys life without separate endeavor. So in the shloka, it is said, or in the translation, so he diminished the reactions of pious activities by enjoyment. So when we enjoy, when we are having good time, we are prosperous and health is good, means we are reducing the bank balance of our pious activities. And impious activities means it should supposed to give us some kind of distress. We all are under distress, especially this coronavirus, this crisis. It is sort of distress. And we are bound up in the house, we are stuck, and there is always danger of getting infected and coming in contact with somebody who's infected, and then what is going to happen? So distress is there, and that is the result of our impious activities. But if we voluntarily take up the distress, voluntarily, distress means austerities. If we perform some austerity voluntarily, that means we are diminishing our bank balance of impious activities or negative bank balance. We are diminishing it because we already we are saying, oh, okay, I don't want to suffer when the Lord has arranged for my suffering. I want to take up the austerities now. And what is austerity we want to take up? Ekadashi, fasting. So fasting is austerity, but it reduces our negative karma. For us, it doesn't even look like austerity now anymore. There's so much of prasadam available for Ekadashi. It doesn't even feel like an austerity. But real austerity, real people, they would perform great austerities on Ekadashi. And still some people do. Like they keep every Ekadashi is neutral Ekadashi. So forget about all the wonderful paneer items or the whatever Ekadashi, atta, samosas and cakes and the muffins, all the wonderful things Radha Prabhu brings on Ekadashi. So one has to perform austerities. Yajna, Dan and Tapa should never be given up. So we voluntarily take up some austerity, and that reduces our negative bank balance. And like Prabhupada also mentions about austerity of refraining from illicit sex life, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. It doesn't feel like an austerity anymore. It feels like, oh, I'm glad I'm not doing all these things. But it's an austerity for a conditioned soul. So if we take up this austerity voluntarily, then we don't have to suffer from all the negative karmas that we have performed. Still, because there's so many lifetimes of karmas involved, we do suffer. But by performing all these austerities, we reduce our suffering. And thus he becomes purified from the reactions of his past impious life. Evam bahu savam kalam mahatma vichalendriya trivargopaikam nitva putriyadan ripasanam. The self-controlled great soul Dhruv Maharaj thus passed many years favorably executing three kinds of worldly activities, namely religiosity, economic development, and satisfaction of all material desires. Thereafter, he handed over the charge of the royal throne to his son. So 36,000 years he ruled over. Then he gave the charge to his son. Perfection of materialistic life is suitably attained by the process of observing religious principles. This leads automatically to successful economic development, and thus there is no difficulty in satisfying all material desires, so dharma, artha, and kama. Since Dhruv Maharaj as a king had to keep up his status quo, or it would not have been possible to rule over the people in general, he did it perfectly. But as soon as he saw that his son was grown up and could take charge of the royal throne, just like Maharaj Uttanpad, when he saw Dhruv Maharaj is grown up and he had all the great qualities of being a great king, he also gave up his throne. He made Dhruv Maharaj a king and he went to the forest. So Dhruv Maharaj also did the same. As soon as he saw his son was grown up and could take charge of the royal throne, he immediately handed over the charge and retired from all material engagements. One word used here is very significant, avichalendriyaha, which means that he was not at all disturbed by the agitation of the senses, nor was his sensory power diminished, although in years he was a very old man. Since he ruled over the world for 36,000 years, naturally one may conclude that he became very old, but factually his senses were very young, and yet he was not interested in sense gratification. In other words, he remained self-controlled. He performed his duties perfectly according to the materialistic way. That is a way of behavior of great devotees. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya, was the son of a very rich man. Although he had no interest in enjoying material happiness, when he was interested in doing something in managing the state, he did it perfectly. Srila Gaur Sundar advised him, from within keep yourself and your mind completely aloof, but externally execute the material duties just as they need to be done. This transcendental position can be achieved by devotees only, as described in Bhagavad Gita, while others, such as yogis, try to control their senses by force. Devotees, even though possessing full sensory powers, do not use them because they engage in higher transcendental activities. So Dhruv Maharaj, although he ruled for 36,000 years, but he was not old. This was also the benediction given by the Lord, that you will never become old. You have control over your senses. But at the same time, although he was at the age of 5, he became self-realized, but he ruled the kingdom properly while he had to rule. And when the right time came, he just gave everything. He made his son the in charge and he left. So the exit strategy should always be there, whether we are in the business or in the job. Of course, job, we have to get retired. Company cannot keep on paying for some old people in the company. So the company makes arrangement for our retirement, but we should be prepared for it, prepared mentally, physically, financially. We should be prepared. So the right time comes and we should retire and just engage ourselves in the bhajan and service of the Lord. Manyamanidam vishwam maya rachitam atmani avidya rachita swapna gandharva vangarupamam. Srila Dhruv Maharaj realized that this cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream of phantasmagoria because it's a creation of the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord. In the deep forest, it sometimes appears that there are big palaces and nice cities. This is technically called Gandharva Nagar. Similarly, in dreams also we create many false things out of imagination. A self-realized person or a devotee knows well that this material cosmic manifestation is a temporary illusory representation appearing to be truth. It is like a phantasmagoria, but behind this shadow certain creation there is a reality, the spiritual world. A devotee is interested in the spiritual world, not its shadow. Since he has a realization of the supreme truth, a devotee is not interested in the temporary shadow of truth. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishtva Nivartate. So Dhruv Maharaj, and here Prabhupada used the word Srila Dhruv Maharaj. So Srila Prabhupada, Srila Dhruv Maharaj. So Shri means the goddess of fortune. So Srila means one who has all the mercy of the goddess of fortune. One who's a servant of goddess of fortune. And the servants in that sense that by following the footsteps of goddess of fortune, he is serving the Supreme Lord. So Srila Dhruv Maharaj realized that this cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream or phantasmagoria. So this cosmic manifestation of the material world, Prabhupada, it's a creation of the illusory or external energy of the Lord. It is illusory in the sense, of course it is real, whatever we see is real, it is there, but it's illusory in the sense we are trying to find happiness in this material world. That is illusory. The computer is not illusory, the mobile phone is real, but trying to find happiness materially from these things, that is illusion. And that's what we have to protect ourselves from. And that can be done when we're making progress in bhakti. So that is why Prabhupada said devotee is interested only in the spiritual world, not its shadow. So our real interest is in Vaikuntha or in Golok Vrindavan. And here we just want to just finish off our sentence, finish off our time, and get out of here. Another example of material world is given just like it's like a toilet. When we go to pass stool and urine in the toilet, we don't sit there and try to observe and appreciate the tiles in the toilet and the nice fixtures and this or that. No, just finish your business and get out of there. Because it's such a dirty place. It's a stinky, dirty place. This is what material world is. So we should not get attached to it. We should try to get out of here as soon as we can. So wonderful verses are going on. So I have to stop here and see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mata.
Hare Krishna,
Thanks,
Prabhuji.
Siddharth.
Thank you so much.
Other than child wala.
Huh?
It's so mesmerizing shlokas, Prabhuji.
Sorry.
Beautiful, Prabhu. The class was really beautiful.
Yeah, the whole thing is going very nicely, but unfortunately, we have our limitations.
It was really good, Prabhuji. Really wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. So we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.